Today is Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020, and this is the Pro and Con Show, and I am your host, Michael James Ott. As always, the only host there will ever be, I'm sure, of the Pro and Con Show. Well, welcome to the show. Hey, again, trying to encourage us to be better citizens. And so I'm not going to touch on that too much because the topic for today, I call today's show Supreme, but it's really about the Supreme Court. And unfortunately for the nation, we lost one of our, I would say, one of our better Supreme Court justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We lost, she passed away a couple of days ago. She had been a cancer survivor, but kind of in this ongoing battle with cancer, and finally succumbed to that, or complications of that, after many years of battling it. And in these very polarized times, and the fact that Mr. Trump actually because of political maneuvering back during the last year of the Obama administration, the Senate, that had just a slight majority as the Republican caucus, they basically refused to even listen to or do any review of the Supreme Court justice that was nominated by Mr. Obama. And at the time, although it was obviously blatantly just political maneuvering, Mr. McConnell said that, well, there's an election coming up, and we should let the election proceed, and then then we'll know the latest state of the American public, and get a court member that's kind of reflecting what the current generation of Americans, and okay, on the surface, all of course, that sounds good and all this other stuff, but the reality is, the president is supposed to, the way the framers of the Constitution, put this forward, the president is supposed to nominate candidates for filling the seats on the Supreme Court, and then the Senate is supposed to confirm them. And the problem is that, like so many things in the Constitution, actually, there are many things in the Constitution that are extremely vague. And this whole thing around the Supreme Court is one of the most vague things that's in the Constitution. And in fact, there's an article, if you want to read it, you can. There's plenty of articles, but the National Geographic put forth an article. They have this old-timey picture of Supreme Court from many decades ago, and the title of the article is "Why the Supreme Court Ended Up with 9 Justices and How That Could Change." And the reality is, if you go back and look into the history of the Supreme Court, that the number of justices in the Supreme Court has varied, I think, from like 5 to 10. And the fact is that it's not in the Constitution. Right now, it's been 9, and it's been 9 for a long time, a century or more. But it hasn't always been that way, and the way the court actually functioned, and there was a time where it was kind of like each justice kind of had a region of the country that they were kind of like the head justice for in these regional court systems. Anyway, the whole point behind it is the Constitution is really silent on the Senate is supposed to confirm the nomination from the president, but is there any time constraint? Can they set the rules or whatever? And the answer is yes. The Congress, basically the Senate in particular, they set the rules on how they go about confirming these court justices. And so normally, and the rules for a long time, because this was, and I would argue still is, because you're nominating a justice, and basically it's a lifetime nomination, there should really be some kind of bipartisan or greater consensus on these justices than just having one party with a slight margin in the Senate being able to confirm basically anyone they want based on one vote in the Senate. Well, and that's the way it was for a long time. And so you had to have, at one time, you had to have 2/3 of the Senate, and then it was lowered to 60% for 3/5. So it was 2/3, then it was lowered to 3/5. And then in 2017, the slight majority of Republicans in the Senate lowered it still further to just a simple majority. And the reason why they did that is because Mr. McConnell, again, saying, okay, I want to be able to make sure that my slight majority in the Senate is able to nominate or approve the next nomination of a justice for the Supreme Court, and because the law, there were no rules to prevent him from doing it. In other words, it didn't take a 3/5 majority to approve a rule change, so they simply changed the rules. And now it takes just a single, a slight majority, 51 out of 100 senators, or if there's a tie, 50-50, then the vice president breaks the tie, and a particular party, because we have a two-party system, which is the root of all evil. I've talked about it many times. So what has happened is now Mr. Trump was able to nominate what should have been an Obama nomination because of Mr. McConnell, and then there was a justice that left the court, passed away again also, and so then Mr. Trump got to nominate his own person that had left the court. And now Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was a prominent, fairly prominent liberal kind of person, focused on equal rights and so on. She, as I just said, she passed away a couple of days ago. And so there's this opportunity for now Mr. Trump to nominate and his Republican conservative party members confirm not one, not two, but 3 Supreme Court justices. And I know that I absolutely know that because they cheer it on and all this other stuff at his rallies, there's a high percentage of Mr. Trump's followers, supporters that think that this is great news, that they are going to basically tip the leaning of the court, because it's a 9-member court. They're going to tip the leaning of the court to being this conservative, if you will, leaning thing. And I think the main thing is around abortion and abortion rights. That seems to be one of the major things. But I would say to anyone, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. In my view, having a court that, and here's the argument for it, and you choose to believe it or agree with it or not. But having a court that is actually fairly balanced, that has a balance of kind of more liberal folks and more conservative folks, maybe some centrist folks, but on the whole, kind of not overly biased in any strong way, is actually in the best interests of the average citizen. And that's because, again, the United States, all of us, we're centrists for the most part. Okay, some of us, again, leaning slightly right, leaning slightly left, but most of us, we're just centrist kinds of things. That's who we are. And you have to be, when you get a court, and it's the Supreme Court, so it's the final judgment on so many issues. When that court is overly biased one direction or the other, then you can have, some things. If you say, well, I want to outlaw abortion, okay, and you may get that by having a court that's overly biased in a so-called conservative way, and that may make you happy, at least momentarily, until that same court starts throwing people in jail because they're not paying their car payments. Because the conservatives, one of their things is you should be responsible. You should be held accountable. And you should be, but at what point does that accountability end? And also, what is a fair and reasonable reaction to some of these things, like just failing to pay the bills kinds of stuff? Because I remember it wasn't that many decades ago, and you were thrown in jail. And one of the major reasons why, by the way, we had that whole revolution thing and separated ourselves from the English was because the king was, taxing people and doing economic harm to folks. And one of the things that happened is if you didn't make the collection, didn't give whatever it was that you were supposed to give, you got jailed. Okay, and this happened to you, this happened to your families, so be careful what you wish for. And now the other thing that and again, it's the two-party system, it's horrific. We should get away from that. And the Citizen Statesman, look it up, look at my past shows. I'm sure I'll talk about it a few more times before the election. But we should abandon all of that traditional polarization kind of stuff and start looking at getting candidates that, are not people that want to be king, but people that, are going to reluctantly serve, basically. And we would be infinitely better off by filling the structure of our country by people who are reluctant servants as opposed to would-be kings. And so because the Supreme Court, so then there's all kinds of discussion about, well, if the Democrats win this upcoming election, and it's starting to look more and more like they will, and if the Republicans have just nominated not one, not two, but three conservative justices in a row to the Supreme Court, well, there's nothing to say that the number on the Supreme Court can't be increased above 9. And if a Democratic president and a slight majority now, because Mr. McConnell changed the rules, so it only takes a single vote over a majority. If a slight majority in the Senate thinks that they should add 2 Supreme Court justices to the Supreme Court and make it 11 instead of 9, and Mr. Biden is the president, and they all agree that that's what they want to do, then guess what? There's going to be two liberal nominees that will be put on the court. And honestly, truthfully, balance on the court is a good thing. Any time the court is overly conservative or overly liberal, that is a bad thing. And anyone out there that thinks otherwise is extremely short-sighted and has not taken any time at all to consider the past and the history of not only our country, but our species. So that's my show on the Supreme Court. And until the next show, as always, bye for now.